Before we begin, make sure you have 1 blanket and 2 blocks, and then we'll start in tabletop. In this posture, you want to try to measure up to the archetype of a table. We'll start by finding shoulder distance with our hands. So bring your hands down to your mat, and then pivot on your wrists to see if your middle fingers touch one another. If they don't, adjust your hands so that they do, and then pivot on your wrists again and face your fingers forward. Now, to measure up and make sure that you have 90-degree angles in your wrists and from your knees to your hips, place a block behind your wrists at first. Notice if you need to shift forward or backwards so that your shoulders are stacked directly above your wrists. And then once you have that, use the block in front of your thigh to make sure from your knee to your hip is a right angle as well. Notice if you tend to sit too far back or too far forward. That'll tell you something about yourself. And then make sure that when you gaze back, you can't see your feet, so they're directly pointed straight behind your knees. Root down to the tops of your feet, all the way from the pinky side, the big toe side, and then return your block to the side of your mat. On your next inhale, round your spine, tuck your chin to your chest, and as you exhale, drop your belly, lift your gaze. Move through cat-cows. Every inhale rounds your spine, and every exhale finds a back bend. This movement comes from the tilt in your pelvis, so feel all of your energy and effort starting from there. And when you think of your body as a house, you can think of that region of your body as your boiler room. So when you move in this way, you're lighting your pilot light. So start to take your forward and backwards a little bit faster and faster. You might even go faster than you've ever gone before moving through cat-cow. Know that that's an exploration, and that as you use your mind and your breath to move your body, you're creating connections. Find the cross-reference of your right hand to your left knee, your left hand to your right knee, and plug them in as you pull them apart. This will help you find volume, it'll help you find more space and take up ground. So keep moving even when you don't want to, forward and back and forward and back, and feel the energy starting to move up your body. So it's starting in your boiler room. That's the first level, the basement of your house, and then it moves up to the second level. And when you feel the energy in that level, where is it originating? It's really starting at your bottom. So know that anytime you're building heat, it starts from the bottom and it goes all the way up out the top of your head. So now you're at your second floor, the floor of ability, and then move it up to the third floor, the floor of your vision, the floor where you find clarity. And keep going forward and back and forward and back. Go 20 more times. When you give yourself a goal, you know you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you're in the middle right now. Just a few more times, forward and back and forward and back. And after your 20th time, take an inhale, round your spine. And as you exhale, let it go. And then flip your right palm 180 degrees so that your fingertips are facing your knees and your palm is still face down on your mat. If you tend to lock your elbows, bring a softness to your right elbow. Then once you've softened it, make sure you're still pulling out towards the right side so that it doesn't cave in. Plug in your entire hand, especially your thumb side of your hand, and then start to make circles in the clockwise direction. So you're still stable in your base, in the tops of your feet and your knees that are plugged into the mat, and then you're pressing equally between your left and your right hand. So keep moving clockwise. Notice that when you flip your wrist, you find more space in your right collarbone, and keep looking out because you always want to know where you're going. You're not really interested in what's behind you because that's your past. What's interesting is your future and all the potential that you have. So keep moving in a clockwise direction. Notice what parts of your wrist it's hard to get to. You can think of your wrist being on a clock face from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Which numbers is it hard to hit? And then start moving in the counterclockwise direction. The front to the left, to the back, to the right. Which way was easier, to the right or to the left? With time or against time? Notice if you're still pressing into the tops of your feet to make sure you're always grounding down. That will keep you stable. And then go ahead and stop the rotation. Flip your wrist and plug it right back in without shaking it out. And then flip your left wrist. Make sure your wrist is directly underneath your shoulders. Both of them are. Keep plugging down, rooting down through your bottom floor, through your feet and your legs. And then start going in the clockwise direction. So moving from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Notice if you've locked your elbow or if you're bending it a little too much. Try to find a nice balance, a nice mediation between too straight and too bent. And where on your hand is it hard for you to plug in? Keep looking out. Feel the openness in your collarbone when you flipped your wrist, how much more space you can find. And if this is really intense on your wrist, it's okay, especially if you've never done this before. It can be very intense, but after a while, it does get better. And then flip direction. So start going counterclockwise, forward, to the left, to the back, to the right. And notice on this hand, is it easier to go left or right? And is that different or the same than the first? When you like to go to the right, you like to go with time, with the seasons, with the earth, with the flow of everything. And if your tendency is for it to be easier to go to the left, that's going against time, towards your first nature. Take about 3 more spins around your wrist. And then go ahead and stop. Turn it back around, plug it in. And then bring your left knee to the middle of your mat, and your right knee will come around it for Gomukhasana legs. Bring your feet as wide as your mat, plug them in, and then flip both wrists. So now both of your hands will be facing the back of your mat. Gaze forward. And now that you have both of your wrists flipped, you have so much spread in your collarbone. Imagine that your left shoulder is reaching out to the left, right shoulder reaching out to the right. You can think of that as east and west. Think about your coccyx going back in space, the crown of your head reaching forward in space, and then start to take your hips in a clockwise direction. So before you were taking your wrists in a circle, or circling around your wrists rather, and now you're taking your hips, your pelvis in the clockwise direction. So this is really originating from just that one region of your body. There shouldn't be much movement in your feet or your hands. So see if you can concentrate your movement there. And then notice, once again, this time your hips are on a clock face. So you go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Which of the numbers is it hardest for you to hit? And then keep moving. Imagine that you're stirring a big stew. It might feel a little bit sluggish. There's a lot in there. And think of your knees together as a third foot. And you can imagine a third hand coming straight down from the middle of your chest. How does that boundary help you actually access more? And how does it help hold you in and keep you towards your center? And then start to whisk it up. So start to go a little bit faster. If before you were stirring up a stew, now you're whisking up a nice thin batter. It's okay to get a little sloppy. Nice. And then go ahead and stop. Uncross your legs. This time bring your right knee to the center, your left knee over. Once again, your feet are as wide as your mat. Plug the tops of your feet in. Find the contact between your knees. And then interlace your fingers to the webbing and create a third hand. So now you do have a physical third hand, a third foot, and you'll start going counterclockwise. So forward, to the left, to the back, to the right. And you can think of this as the game of baseball, because that's the direction that they go. From home to first to second to third, home to first to second to third. So which base is it hard for you to get around this way? And notice that when you bring two things together, you had your right hand, your left hand, and now you have a third hand. You don't just create a second thing. So 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 equals a whole new thing. So when you have yellow and red, you create orange. And when you have a mom and a dad, that creates a U. And when you have the past and the future, That creates the present when you mediate the two. So take a few more circles in the slow stew-like fashion, and then start to whisk it up. Start to imagine that you're sprinting from home to first to second to third. And you're just sprinting around and around the bases. How fast can you get around? And as you get around faster and faster, and it gets a little sloppy, what do you notice? And take 5 more spins. When you're done with your 5th one, bring your feet, your knees back to parallel, so uncross your legs. Undo the interlace of your hands, plug your hands right back in. And just notice for a moment if you feel any sensations in your wrists, if you feel any relief. And then we're going to walk it forward to a down dog. So walk your hands a little bit further forward in front of you. You can make sure that they're still shoulder distance apart, and step your feet back to plank pose at first. The measure of your plank, if you have 90-degree angles of your heels stacked over your toes and your shoulders stacked over your wrists, when you press your hips up, that will be the measure of the length of your down dog. So once you found a good plank pose, go ahead and press your hips up to down dog. And the down dogs in Katonah Yoga may be very different from any down dog you've had in a practice before. So you want to start by bending your knees and lifting your heels really high. You'll start to travel your legs. So from the middle of your knee to your heel, think that you're pulling that apart. So you're pulling down towards the earth. And from the middle of your knee up to your hips, you're pulling up towards the sky. So really you're traveling your legs, not just straightening your legs. And this will help you not only find length in your legs, but it'll also help you tilt your pelvis so that you get a nice crescendo in your back. And once you reach close to the archetype of your dog, you'll find that all of the effort is in your legs and in your first fold in your hip crease instead of in your back and in your arms. And then start to walk your dog. Find the cross reference of your right hand to your left foot, your left hand to your right foot. Pull them apart. And where X marks the spot on your back, that's where you want to find a back bend. Rotate your armpits towards your heart. And then plug your entire hand into your mat, but especially press into your knuckles. Keep traveling the backs of your legs. Make sure that your belly is resting on your thighs. Try to create as much contact between your upper and lower body as you can as you create a 60-degree triangle of strength, structure, and stability. And then bring your right hand to your back, your palm facing up. And know that when you have one hand on the mat, that's the lung that you're pumping. Cross-reference between your left hand and your right foot, and your left foot and an imaginative right hand that you have on the mat. So your right collarbone is still in line with your left. Your hips are still equally pressing up towards the sky. And then bring your right hand back to your mat and your left hand to your back. Cross-reference right hand, left foot, imaginative left hand. Imagine each collarbone reaching out in its opposite direction, east and west. And then return your left hand down to your mat. Bring your left hand about one hand's length back on your mat and reach your right hand for your left heel. Make sure that you get your hand entirely around your heel so that it's a ball and a mitt fit. Bend into your knees, keep your heels lifted, and then try to get your right knee into your right armpit, knowing that you are designed to fit yourself. And that every time you find contact of the ball in the mitt, in different areas of your body, your nervous system is calmed. Gaze up towards the left. Tuck your chin into your left armpit. Keep rotating your left armpit towards your heart. And then gaze underneath your left shoulder. Try to keep your right hip in line with your left. And then switch sides. Bring your right hand back down to the mat. Your left hand grabs for your right heel. Find your left knee into your left armpit, ball and a mitt fit. Your left hand is cupping your right heel with as much contact as possible. And then keep your hips level. Your left hip might start to dip this time, so be aware of that and press it up towards the sky. Find your chin and your armpit, gaze up towards the right. And then come out of it. Bring your left hand back to your mat and walk your dog. And know that when you walk your dog, you're cross-referencing and you're always gazing a little bit forward in your down dog. So your head isn't lifted, but you do want your ears by your biceps. And then walk your feet to your hands and your hands to your feet and towards the middle of your mat. And check that your feet are hip width apart. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can pivot on your heel and line up your right toes with your left heel and make sure that that fits and adjust your feet as needed. And then you can pivot the other foot, left toes to right heel, and then pivot back. You can also take 2 fists and measure them in between your arches. That should be the same fit. And you can interlace your hands, your fingers, and your thumbs should fit between your big toe and your second toe. So once you found hip width apart, bend into your knees, find belly to thigh contact, and in the folds in Katonah Yoga, that is the most important thing, is that you find belly to thigh contact, that you keep a bend in your knees, because what we're really working on here is our first origami fold. It's the fold of our hips. It's the biggest fold of your body. It's the most important fold in your body because it connects your upper and your lower body. So once you find belly to thigh contact, find your knees and your armpits. Your head and your neck are released. And then take opposite elbow. So create a frame with your arms for your head to come through. Roll your armpits towards your heart. And then see how much you can drop your head. The more that you drop your head, the more that you'll be able to lift up your butt. And just like we did in our down dog, you'll travel your legs by thinking of the middle of your knee down to your heel is going down towards the earth, and the middle of your knee up to your butt is going up towards the sky. And even though you're traveling your legs in this way, you never actually fully straighten your legs. And we're going to be here for a bit, so if you ever need to come out and take a little break, no worries. And now we're going to start shifting forward and back. So keep both feet planted on your mat the entire time, but you'll just shift between the balls of your feet and the heel of your foot. And know that every time that you shift into the balls of your foot, that's shifting into your future, into your potential. And that can feel a little scary. It can feel a little anxiety producing. So go ahead and do that now. Shift forward and just notice how it feels. What does it feel like to be in your future? Does it feel unstable? Does it feel like you might fall over, like you could make a mistake? And then shift back into your heels. This is your past, what's come before you, your memories. There can be a lot of comfort here, but there can be a lot of complacency and dullness as well. So as soon as you're back there, you really want to get forward again. So you go forward into the balls of your feet, your potential, your future, and then you shift back into your comfort so that you don't have anxiety, so you can just be. And then you shift forward and you shift back and you keep going between the two. And know that anytime you're trying to hold something, you don't hold in stillness, but rather you oscillate between two opposing things. And that will help you find eventually your middle. It's what helps you meditate. So once you've gone forward and back a couple of times, know that the arch of your foot is your present moment. So eventually you want to find yourself going closer and closer towards your present moment, towards your arches. Not too much weight in the front, not too much weight in the back. And know that the reason I keep talking, the reason that you're here is I'm trying to get you through this posture of stability, this posture that takes so much effort in your legs when you first start, but that's really getting you out of your upper body. It's getting you out of your back, which is where we normally do so much of our work. So really we're building up stamina, building up your ability to be with something for a long time, and know that your mind has the power to manipulate time with your breath, with your thoughts, and with how you can distract it or pay attention. So now we're going to place our hands underneath our feet. So you'll go ahead and lift up your toes so that you can slide your hands underneath. Your palms will be facing up and your fingers will be facing back. And now if these folds are a lot, you can always place your blanket underneath your heels. So once you're on your hands, know that anytime you're pressing your feet into your hands, you're really ironing out your back. It's like you're steam pressing your hand, steam pressing your back, because the back of your hand is your actual back, and the front of your hand is your actual front. And make sure that your toes are all the way up towards your wrists. And then keep shifting your weight forward, because the more you shift your weight forward, the higher you'll be able to get your butt. Nice. And then bring your hands out from under your feet and create cups with your hand and place them underneath your heels. So this is another ball and a mitt fit. Your heels root down into the palms of your hand, the perineum of your hand. And the more and more contact that you find, the easier this pose may become, because the more contact you have, the more calming it is to your nervous system. The more contact you have, the more leverage you have. So keep releasing your head down towards your mat as you lift your butt higher. And then go ahead and release that. Bring your hands out to your side so that you're not touching your body with your hands at all. And in a moment, we're going to roll up. Just make sure that you don't place your hands on your body, because that will make you get into your back. And we really want to unfold your fold from the fold of your hips. So as you're ready, slowly start to roll yourself up. And this is a really slow roll, because the art of any fold is really about how you unfold it. So you roll it up. The last thing that reaches the top is your head, imagining that you're rolling yourself out, building up into a beautiful cathedral, stacking one brick at a time. Once you come all the way up, reach your arms up overhead, hook your thumbs at the top, roll your armpits towards your heart. Make sure there's still a bend in your knees. Your feet are still hip width apart, which you can check by pivoting on your heel. Gaze forward. And then start to take it side to side. So you'll go up and over to the right, and then up and over to the left. And whichever way you go, you want to press into the opposite foot to keep rooted down. So you're going up and over. And this isn't super formal. It's just bringing a little side body stretch here. And then once you come back up to center, take a big inhale breath. And as you exhale, release your arms down to your sides. Let your chin fall towards your chest. Take an inhale. And then we're going to start to roll it back down. So roll down from the top all the way to the bottom slowly. Whenever you run out of breath, pause. And once you've paused, take an inhale. Hold the pregnant pause for a moment. And then exhale to continue to lower yourself down. Bend your knees. Start to root your heels down. Stick your butt up. And then this time you're going to reach your hands behind you and then forward through your legs so that you're reaching for opposite ankles, but your hands are crossing in front. And now you have even more contact. So how can you use this contact now to find even more length in the back of your legs? And what do you need to do to be able to stay here? Do you need to give yourself a breath count? That's a great thing to do. Let's say that you're going to take 20 more breaths here. And if you want this to go faster because you're hating it, breathe really quickly. And if you want this to go slower because you're loving it, or just because you know that you need it in your hips to open up, then breathe slower. Know that you have the opportunity to use your breath to manipulate time, to manipulate your experience. And then notice where your weight is. Do you tend to shift back into your past, to be comfortable, to be complacent? Or do you tend to shift forward? Maybe you deal with anxiety. Maybe you're just really curious about what's happening in your future. Or do you feel in the middle, like you're really just enjoying this present moment? And then switch which hand's in front so your arms stay mostly the same. Just swap which cross is first. And then finish out your 20 breaths. So you should be about halfway there, depending on how quickly or slowly you breathe. And then we will roll it up one more time. So release your hands, keep them away from your body, and start the slow roll up to the top. This is your second chance to build your cathedral. What did you learn from the first time that you can apply now? Can you keep your knees bent? Keep the weight equally between your heels and your toes as you roll yourself up. And once you get to the top, reach your arms up overhead, opposite thumb in front this time as you hook your thumbs overhead. In your mind, try to get your fingers to point straight up towards the sky. And then gaze up at your fingers and notice if they actually were straight. And if not, arrange them so that they are. And then re-extend your gaze forward. Interlace your fingers to the webbing, press your palms up towards the sky. Focus on your wrists being what goes up, up, up. And then look up, bring your hands underneath your chin. And then start to bend down through a chair. So stick your butt out, shift your weight forward into the balls of your feet. And once you get to 90 degrees, like a table, stop. It's helpful to think about your coccyx going back, the crown of your head going forward. Keep your gaze forward. Your right elbow going out to the right, your left elbow going out to the left. You're being pulled apart in all directions. How much volume, how much space can you find? Take a breath in and exhale to lower all the way down into your fold. One final time here. Pick whichever arm variation you like the most, the one that gave you the most contact, the one that gave you the biggest opportunity and the most potential to find the fold in your hip. And then let go of your arm variation. Walk yourself out to a down dog. Measure yourself out. You can come to plank first. Find the 90-degree angle from your wrist to your shoulders, to your hips, and then press it up to a dog. And then we're going to go forward to a plank on an inhale and back to a dog as you exhale. Forward to your plank as you inhale, back to your dog as you exhale. And you can start moving a little faster. You can keep it slow. Try to go with what you normally don't do. So if you normally go slowly, take it up a little bit. Use your breath, use your body to help fire you up. And if you tend to do everything on hyperspeed, go a little slower. Balance yourself out. So you'll go forward and back through plank and down dog and plank and down dog. Keep it with your breath. Every inhale is a plank, every exhale is a down dog. And always keep your gaze forward. So even on your down dog, look slightly forward, and every plank, you're going to look a little bit out as well. And it's your pubis that's coming forward. That's what's helping you get your hips forward. And next time you come through plank, go all the way to an up dog, and then press it up to a down dog, and then come forward into an up dog as you inhale, and back to a down dog as you exhale. One thing that's really helpful here is to bring 2 blocks right at the top of your thighs, and this will help you not go too deep in your up dog. So go ahead and do that. You'll bring the 2 blocks on their medium height lengthwise across your mat. And then go forward and back and forward and back. And every time you come to up dog, your 2 shoulders are pulling in opposite directions. You're finding length through your collarbones. And notice if you try to go too deep, if those blocks made a really big difference. Notice that about yourself. That means something. That means you do go too deep. And how can you stay a little more buoyant, a little more on the surface? Keep going forward and back and forward and back. Up dog to down dog, up dog to down dog. And then next time you come to your up dog, press up to a plank for a second. Then release your thighs onto your blocks. Flip your palms 180 degrees. Make sure your wrists are directly under your shoulders. And then start to lower halfway down to a 90-degree angle. And then press back up. And halfway down and press back up. Keep your gaze forward the entire time. Make sure that the balls of your feet are plugged in, and imagine that your thighs are always spiraling inward to help give connection, current, feedback to the middle of your body. And we'll take 15 of these. If you have a friend nearby, it's really helpful for them to sit on your heels to help ground you. And once you're done with your 15, go ahead and bring your hands back forward. Sit back so that you can move your blocks to the side. And then we'll come into one final down dog of practice. So send your hips high. Find your 60-degree triangle, your strength, your structure, your stability. And then come down to your hands and knees. And we'll set up for our final posture, a seated forward fold. Bring your sits bones onto your blanket. Make sure your blanket is folded a couple times. And the reason we sit up on a blanket is because everything is easier on a downhill slope. It'll help you get the tilt of your pelvis. It'll help you stay in your hip crease. And once you're sitting on your blanket, make sure your blocks are nearby. Lift up each of your sits bones. Remove the flesh out from underneath you to sit on your perineum, your plug into the earth, plug into a socket. Make sure you have a bend in your knees. Bring your legs together. And then one of your blocks will be vertical right in front of your feet, and the other will be horizontal behind it. You might only need one block. You can also take this with your feet hips distance apart instead. And you want to make sure that your fold is coming from your hips. So once you've plugged yourself in, scoot back a tiny bit just to make sure you're fully plugged in and you're hinging from your hips. And then fold over yourself. If your forehead does not meet your legs, you can bring a block or a blanket on top of your legs. If you have your legs wider, just place a block on your mat at whatever height it needs to be to support your head. And we'll be here for a little bit. So in your forward fold, can you press your heels away from your body and reach your sits bones behind you? So this is how you travel your legs without just straightening them. Middle of your knee to your heel is going forward in front of you. Middle of your knee to your butt is going back behind you. Make sure your feet are fully planted into your block, and that this isn't coming from your back, it's rather coming from the fold in your hips. So a lot of us will need to bend our knees so much more than we realize. And know that the bend in your knees is so helpful for your body and will actually help you travel this posture and make so much more gains than you ever could if you had straight legs. Anytime you lock a joint, anytime you straighten something so much, you take away the opportunity for currency to run through it. So by softening, it's like an and. So there's this part of the leg and this part. So the currency can run through it, the energy can run through it, and your breath and mind can really help you travel that part of your body. So cross-reference from your right heel to your left butt and your left heel to your right butt. Plug them in. Cross-reference from your right shoulder to your left butt, your left shoulder to your right butt, and find a little back bend in your fold. One strategy for staying in this posture longer is taking account for your breath. So on every inhale, count in for 5, then hold for 5, exhale for 10, hold empty for 5. So breathe in for 5, hold full for 5, exhale for 10, hold empty for 5. And what's great is in the beginning when this is intense, and you maybe feel like, wow, I could never exhale for 10, you can count really fast. So you can inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, hold empty 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if you've been working with your breath for a while and you think you have a little more capacity to hold for longer, you can inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold empty 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So take your count at whatever speed you need and take 3 more full breaths. At the end of your 3rd breath, hold on to opposite elbows and come up in a back bend. So try to keep this out of the muscle on your back and really back bend over yourself as if there was a beach ball behind you, pressing into you as you come up. Once you get to the top of your back bend, release your arms to your sides. Come into a twist. Your left hand comes to your right knee. Your right hand reaches behind you. You can place it on the mat or the floor. And then keep the length in your spine as you twist over to the right. When you feel like you can't twist anymore, imagine your left nipple is reaching back to the right behind you. And then take the twist over to the other side, your right hand to your left knee, left hand behind you, long, straight spine. Still plugged into your perineum. And as you twist, try to find your back bend. At this time, imagine your right nipple reaching up and around and over towards the left. And then come back through center. And to finish off our practice, we will meet in Virasana in Hero's Pose. So find a block underneath your sits bones. Sit on the block, your feet are out to either side, knees together. Bring your hands over your head, your arms to the shape of a V, your palms like cups to receive grace. And we'll take 100 Kapalabhati breaths to finish out our practice. Kapalabhati breaths are a forceful exhale through your nose. Take a big breath in. Inhale, hook your thumbs up over your head, take 3 more sips through your mouth, 3 more sips, 1 through your nose, hold at the top, and exhale, arms out to the side, bring your hands to your heart, spend a moment, feel the grace pouring over you. Equal grace to all of your effort. Namaste.